This is it. What is going on, guys? My name is Landon. Today, we're gonna get a little bit of a different type of video. We're bringing you guys my predictions for the MLG World Finals. Now, first of all, I will be attending this event. I'm actually going to be here, so I'm kind of making the video a little bit early, a couple days early in advance. I would normally upload this on more like a Friday, morning, but I'll be uploading this probably on a Thursday. We'll see how everything works out and, you know, how I get it to upload and thumbnails and stuff like that. So, with that, I'll be attending this event. This is going to be a fantastic event, and this is the final event of Advanced Warfare, the final major event of Advanced Warfare. This is the first time and the last time you'll also see a lot of these rosters play. After this is over, I swear to you, after Advanced Warfare is over, we're going to see an insane amount of roster mania off the break, and also a couple of weeks after Black Ops 3 has already started. So just letting you know that in advance, this is the first and last time you're going to see a lot of these rosters play, so make note of it. This is going to be a $250,000 tournament. That's a lot of money. And this is not going to be like a regular MLG Invitational. This is basically an open event. They're going to have a certain amount of, open bracket teams. The top 4 of the open bracket teams get placed in the 4 groups, which we will be talking about today. First prize, let's go over the prize pool a little bit. Obviously, we said it's $250,000. First place, you're going to be awarded $100,000 along with 50,000 pro points. Coming in second, you will receive $60,000 along with 30,000 pro points. Coming in third, you will receive $40,000 and 22,000 pro points. In fourth, you will receive $20,000 and 18,000 pro points. If you finish in fifth through sixth, you will get $10,000 along with 16,000 pro points. And finally, in seventh through eighth, final spot for being in the money, you will receive $5,000 along with 14,000 pro points. So that's kind of how the prize pool is going to be shaping up. $250,000 to be awarded and a crap ton of pro points as well. This is the final major event for Advanced Warfare. Let's talk about some of these teams and also talk about the groups that will be going on for this tournament. So I'm reading you guys off the groups. Obviously, we do have 4 groups currently consisting of 4 teams. There will be another team added into this, kind of moving forward a little bit. But actually, I'm going to tell you guys something really quick. So how the games are going to be working, each of these games played in the group stages will be best of 5s. Once we get all the way to the winners finals, not the grand finals, but the winners finals, that will be a best of 7. As far as I know, losers finals will not be a best of 7, and also grand finals will be a best of 7. So just want to let you guys know that. So let's go ahead and get into the groups. We're going to read off Group A, which will be consisting of Optic Gaming, Team Caliber, XGN, and Team Infused. Moving on to Group B, we have FaZe Clan, Optic Nation, Isolation Esports, along with Vitality. Moving on to Group C, we have Denial Esports, Epsilon Esports, Rise Nation, and Millennium. And finally, in Group D, we have Team Elevate, Team Envy, Team Orbit, we have a lot of teams, and Citadel Gaming. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over each group in particular, talk about these teams in depth, and keep in mind, this will be a long video. I know, since it's the last video, I'll be talking about these teams very much in depth and kind of go over who I think will be making it where. The top 2, I believe, out of each group make it to the winners, and obviously the bottom 3, I believe, make it down to the losers bracket as well. So that's kind of how we're going to talk about everything, kind of relay the information, how I think everything is going to go down, so on and so forth. So let's go and hop into Group A. So in Group A, like we just said, we have Optic Gaming, Team Caliber, XGN, and Team Infused. So we're going to want to talk about Optic Gaming. First of all, what can you really say about OG throughout this entire season? They've remained basically the same for the most part, instead of kind of substituting nade shot near the beginning of, or not really the beginning, but kind of like almost the middle of the game, and kind of putting Karma in that position. Many will regard Karma as a bad player, which is not the case. There's been times, and there's been, people who have made obligations and things saying, Karma's not a very good player in the game. When you have 3 talented Slayers around you, arguably some of the best Slayers we have in Call of Duty today, it's very hard to get kills, especially when you're focusing on that objective role. Now, am I giving Karma a pass to go negative? Not at all. So just keep that in mind. I'm not giving Karma a pass at all to go negative, because there are a lot of objective players, replays included, who is a hardcore OBJ who goes almost positive. Around a 0.97 and 0.95 is where his KD averages at, and he's playing more of an objective role than Karma is. It kind of depends on how your team works. If Karma was going negative, excuse me, whenever they were winning. So it's like, you don't have to have everyone going positive to win. Is it good to have consistency? Yes. I would much rather have a team who are all going positive than like 3 or even 2 teammates who have like a 1.2 KD. You want everyone to be carrying their own weight. But when it comes to the objective role, it's a lot different. You have to kind of manage it. You have to get the kills that matter. And Replays has been playing, you know, an objective kind of a mindset for a little bit of time. This is the first game, the first, you know, time Karma has had to kind of play this role in any title that he's played in. You know, he's played more of a slang type, more of a sniper, aggressive, you know, type of player throughout all of his Call of Duty years, and it's a lot different, you know, trying to move on to a different type of you know, a different type of position. In Advanced Warfare, it's so, you know, there's so many gunfights going on. It's pretty crazy. So Optic Gaming in Group A looking to be, you know, pretty dominant. I'm most likely 100% assuming that they're going to make it out of this group, but you know, a very strong team. You know, you're always going to see Formal, one of the best battles that we have in the entire game, regarded as top 2, maybe even top 1 against Clay. But I definitely think they're going to make it out. But we'll talk about them and the teams who I think will make it out of this group and moving on to the winners bracket in just a second. So next team we have is obviously going to be Team Caliber. TK obviously was one of the teams kind of drafted into this group. I probably should have told you guys that. How the groups basically worked, this is how I do all my videos. It's like, I tell you guys all the information halfway and throughout the entire video. So how this kind of worked out, they had different tiers based on, like, you know, what teams had this amount of pro points and stuff. Basically, the top 4 teams in each group, so Optic Gaming, FaZe, I believe Elevate, and Denial, those were the top 4 teams as a whole. And those teams were kind of based off in different groups. So Optic Gaming in Pool A, FaZe in Group B. So they wouldn't be in the same group, so you wouldn't have, you know, Optic, FaZe, Denial all in the same group at one time. They wanted to space it out, and I like the way that they did it, but just note that the 3 bottom teams in these groups are all completely randomized. There's no way that, like, you know, this was rigged. So just keep that in mind. But moving on, like I said, we do have Team Caliber. TK obviously have struggled in a crazy amount. I'm just going to read you guys off some of the placings that they've had throughout Advanced Warfare. Notice that they do have a couple different teammates involved. But MLG Columbus Open, they finished 4th. UMG Orlando, 7th through 8th. Season 1 playoffs, they finished 3rd. Call of Duty Championships, they finished 8th. And also the regional finals, they finished 7th through 8th. Spring Masters, 9th through 12th. UMG California, 9th through 12th. Regular season for Season 2, they finished 8th. The AW Season 2 playoffs, which was X Games, they finished 4th. UMG Dallas, 9th through 12th. Gfinity, 9th through 12th. MES, 5th through 6th. UMG Washington, 5th through 6th. And in the Pro League Season 3 playoffs, they finished 9th through 12th. So those are not the best placings. Keep in mind, they have had a couple different players throughout the entirety of this game. You know, they've had Looney at times. They had, you know, Gunjar. They've had a lot of different players kind of come in and out of this team as well. For those who don't know, they recently picked up Apathy and kind of added him onto the squad in place of Nameless, which I thought was probably a pretty good, you know, pretty good play out of them. You know, what can you really say about Team Caliber? You know, they're honestly a family of players. They are a family of players. They like having chemistry together, and I admire them for that. There's not a whole lot of team organizations and you know, people who think long-term, who think, you know, as a family type of aspect. We recently had Neslo actually on the Sticks, which I'll link that video or that podcast down below if you guys are interested in that one. But, you know, he was talking about the new roster. He was like, you know, we're happy to have Nameless out of the team, but having a familiar face in Apathy, having what Neslo said, you know, one of his biggest duos he's ever had in the game. You know, Apathy is a very good player. He can kind of be inconsistent at times, but I always say this, and I hate repeating myself over and over again, but whenever he's playing his best, he is one of the best in the game. I will live by that until he proves me otherwise. But Apathy's a phenomenal player. He's a very good, aggressive SMG type of you know, style. He's pretty lethal when it comes to other game types, maybe even Search and Destroy. Neslo has kind of recently kind of taken over that BAL type of role that Nameless kind of held. You know, many teams kind of have struggles with that BAL role. Who's going to run it? Neslo's been the main slayer for this team. Throughout the events that I've watched, throughout the events that I've been to, Neslo has been the main slayer for this Team Caliber squad, and it's nice to see him kind of counterbalance that with a pretty good slayer and a pretty good player with a good amount of gun skill and Apathy. So I think the Team Caliber honestly did get a little bit better through the roster mania, which, you know, we're not going to talk about. In this group, they are going to have a little bit of an issue with, I think, might be Team Infused and whatnot, but we'll see how it works out. Team Caliber, I think, looks a little bit better than they have in the past. Could this be the event where they finally turn up? This is their last chance, man. This is the final event of Advanced Warfare. If there was ever a time to, you know, silence the haters at the final event, it is this one. So we'll see how TK does. You know, along in their group. Next team we have is actually going to be XGN. In case you don't know this current roster, it is consisting of Fizzerp, Killa, Study, and Felony. You know, what can I say about XGN? You know, XGN has had, I don't want to say struggles throughout the entire year, but it seems like XGN has kind of been that default organization who has kind of picked up the players who have been known in the past to do pretty well, you know, veteran players, and kind of picked them up and kind of ran with them a little bit. I really like XGN in a way, but I'm also kind of skeptical to how they're going to do at this event. First of all, they're playing in the MLG 10K, the last 10K for AW last weekend, and they had a really hard time trying to get Killa on. They actually played 3v4 for their first game and ended up winning. But there's just been so much arguing going on with this team. You know, Fizzerp's had a lot of outside things going on. Killa, has been in trouble even getting on, and it seems like they're always arguing, which is what you're going to get. You know, when you have a lot of strong personalities together, you're going to have a little bit of arguing back and forth. But it just seems that this team is barely hanging together. It's like, you know, what was it, like the straw that broke the camel's back. I feel like there's one thing that could completely send this team off, and the main player who's going to have to maintain them together is going to be Study. Study, you know, hasn't had the best title for Advanced Warfare, but he's a great player. He's a phenomenal player at this game, and he's the guy that's going to have to go off with them consistently. Now, if these guys can't pick it up, he's going to be have to dropping like 40, 50 bombs in different game types and also doing a lot of the objective work. He's going to have to play what I would consider a Scump type of role. You know, Scump's a phenomenal player. He's going to get kills. He's going to be one of the highest KDs, and he's also going to be getting a lot of the times, you know, in hard points. He's going to be grabbing the uplink drone, doing a lot of things that don't necessarily show up on the scoreboard, but he does literally everything. That's what Study's going to have to do. He's going to have to play that role where he's getting involved with every aspect of the game, whether it's grabbing the uplink drone every once in a while, grabbing the bomb, or doing something crazy. He's going to have to be willing to do that and do it well on a very consistent basis. This is not going to be an easy event for this XGN squad. You know, they're not in an easy group, to say the least. You have TK with the new roster. You have Optic Gaming. You also have Infuse, which we'll get to. But I'm not sure how to think of XGN, to be honest. You know, honestly, if I don't see Study completely go off, I'm really worried about this team, to be honest with you. I could easily see them not necessarily not win a game through group stages, but they're going to have to turn it up in some way, and Study is 100% the key to this team's success. So we'll see how they do. I hope they have the chemistry to, you know, try to get through this, but this is the last event, so we could see them group together and realize this is the final time we're even going to have to play with each other. So you know, we'll see how it moves on with XGN, but, you know, like I said, Study's going to be the main guy to watch. All right, so the next team we're going to get to is obviously going to be Team Infuse. So, really quickly, if you guys don't know, obviously we are going to have not four random teams, but 4 top teams from the open bracket get placed in each pool. Obviously, I can't name off which open bracket team it'll be in this group, but just know that the reason I'm not naming off the 5th team is that we don't know who they are. So I just want to let you guys know that as well. So Team Infused, a team that I'm not really familiar with, maybe to be honest with you. I don't know EU Call of Duty as well as I know NA. But the current roster for Infused is, I believe, Marky B, PD, Urban, and Zero. I remember saying that on the 6 the other day. So Urban and Zero, PD along with Marky B. You know, this is not by any means a group that they can't get out of. You know, obviously we've seen throughout the entirety of Call of Duty, throughout Advanced Warfare, even in Ghosts, EU teams do have a little bit of an issue coming over to a different country. We've even seen that with NA players. You know, it's a lot different. You're playing on different time zones. You know, usually when you would be asleep is when you're in the middle of a game. You know, it's very hard to transition for a weekend, let alone, you know, 3 certain days that you're going to have to be playing Call of Duty on a very high level when you're not used to it. I'm a big Marky B fan. You know, he's definitely the captain and leader for this team. I could definitely see him leading them. You know, we've seen Marky B along with his teammates in the past through different organizations do well. I believe in Ghost, he was like one of the, I think he placed like TCM top 3 or top 4. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was like the highest placing an EU team has ever gotten toward. And, you know, Marky B was kind of leading those guys along. So could we see another amazing finish out of an organization that Marky B leads? That will be, you know, the storyline for hopefully MLG Worlds for them. We'll see what happens, but kind of going over and, you know, recapping this entire group, I'm going to say out of Group A, I think it'll be Optic Gaming making it through. Not really a surprise, along with Team Caliber. I like Infused, I like XGN, but there's a lot of things that I'm relying on to happen. It's like if they can, like, it's like having a checklist and expecting all those things to be done. If all those things aren't done, then I see TK making it through. By no means do I see TK easily getting out of this group, but it's going to be difficult for them. Obviously, MLG Worlds, the last event, we could see anything happen. You know, all these teams want to do well. Teams who are good and also teams who have struggled in the past. Players also who want to prove themselves in the final event. So anything could happen, but based off of previous events, and you know how I think things will work out, I'm going to say Optic Gaming and TK make it out of Group A And, you know, obviously I don't know the open bracket team, so. All right, now moving on to Group B. The teams that we have in Group B are consisting of FaZe Clan, Optic Nation, ISO, and also Vitality. Now, this is a pretty interesting group, I have to say. First team that we're looking at is obviously going to be FaZe Clan, a very, very dominant team. They've won 3 of the 4 past events. The one event that they did lose, they ended up placing 7th through 8th, which I believe was at DC, the event that I was at and casted at. And yeah, that wasn't the same FaZe team that I've been seeing. I've been watching FaZe play a lot of different scrims. I believe they played like ISO the other day. They've been playing a lot, and you know, they seem very comfortable, not in a bad way. They seem always, whenever they're playing against a good team, they seem to be very level-headed. They seem to be focused, and they just seem to be clicking, unlike any other team that I've been watching besides like Optic Gaming. You know, FaZe Clan is a very dominant team. Everyone thinks that it's going to be OG and FaZe in the grand finals. Spoiler alert, as you know, myself included. But FaZe, you know, they have some good teams in this group, but I definitely do not see them at least being beaten more than once. You know, maybe they'll lose a game or a series here or there, but they're a very, very solid team, and they can consistently do work. You know, even versus Epsilon, they made a major comeback being down 0-3 and were able to power back. You know, we've seen them beat OG a couple times. OG has yet to beat this team, and I know OG fans hate hearing that, but OG has yet to beat this current FaZe lineup, including, you know, Attach and Clayster, along with this roster. So we'll see how that pans out. Will we see OG play FaZe later on? That is the question, but, you know, I know we're just in group stages right now. But FaZe, really, really happy with this team. This is my favorite roster that I've been watching recently, and even when this team first started, I was like, I like this team a lot. I had no idea, you know, the success that they would have, and I would have never predicted the success that they would have had, but I like this team off the bat, and, you know, they've shown to have very, very good success moving forward. So FaZe Clan, definitely a team that I'm looking at to make it out of this group. They're regarded as one of the best, if not the best team in the game right now, but we'll move forward and go over to Optic Nation. ON, making also a little bit of roster changes, you know, before Worlds, you know, actually releasing Mochilla, who decided to leave, and picking up in his place Nameless. So the current roster, along with Nameless for Optic Nation, obviously has been Imbos, Ricky, along with Miracles. You know, I like the ON team. I like the guys a lot. They've obviously had no... They're not any... They're no stranger to struggling in Advanced Warfare either. You know, they've had, you know, recent changes and whatnot, but, you know, they always seem to struggle at open events. It seems that way, at least for me. Imbos has said that countless times. They just always seem to struggle with UMGs and stuff, and, you know, this is a UMG-style type of event, so we'll see how it works out for these guys. I've been seeing them scrim a lot, and it seems like Nameless has been kind of transitioning to an SMG as well, and for a player who's been playing the BAL basically the entire game consistently, and now seeing him transition, I don't know what's up their sleeves. I don't know if they're... I know they've been having Ricky play more of a BAL, so I'm not really sure what this team is kind of coming up with. They could have strategies, or they, you know, they could be just developing to a different game type, but it's very hard to add a player to a team. I mean, that's 3/4 of your communication already changed up. You know, that's 25% of all the calling going on in the game. That's a different voice. It's someone that you've never heard of before, along with a lot of these other teams, but Owen included. You know, Nameless is very good friends with this team. I think the chemistry is definitely with them. If there is one thing that I'm looking at for Owen to improve on, it would just be overall consistency. If you want Owen to make it at least top 3, top 5 even, they have to all be going positive. They all have to be doing well at one time. There's not one player who I look at from this team and say, that's the guy that's going to go off. Because you really don't know. You know, Imbos did pretty well at the last event, excluding how Mochilla's performance was. You know, Ricky has shown to be a very good player in that support type of category. Miracles has to be, you know, one of the top KDs of the event. That is absolutely necessary. You're not going to see Imbos or Ricky most likely have a higher KD than Miracles does. And in that, Miracles has to do well. He's the main player that I'm watching out for, along with Nameless, to have to go off. Because if those two guys aren't going off, I don't want to say it's questionable how they're going to do, but it's not going to be easy for, you know, this team who necessarily isn't the best at, like, the support type of role. Like, there are some teams who can all go negative and still do, like, win events. Like E6, that's one thing that I'm thinking of. You know, they did a phenomenal job at one of the UMGs, and all of them went negative. It's like, how do you do that? It's just getting the kills that matter, rotating, and just knowing the game overall. Optic Nation, a little bit of a different team for me, but for them, I think slang is their main problem. You know, they'll try to push out as a team, and it just doesn't work because of the slang deficit that they have to face. So with that, Owen's going to have to all be going consistent, and the main player that I'm watching has to be Miracles. I like how I've been talking for this long. We're just halfway through Group B. I apologize. But next team we have is going to be Isolation Empire, or Isolation Esports, I believe is what their kind of new title type of is. But still, I like this team a lot. I'm a big fan of ISO. Many people will kind of regard them as like, you know, an average team, which they have been, kind of currently consisting around like the 4th, 5th type of position, but they're very lethal. I think of ISO as my main wildcard team for the fact that, you know, they've been consistent throughout the entire title, that this roster has really been together. You know, Llama got excluded for a couple of events, but they seem to be very consistent. You know, they're a team that you could always rely on to do well and beat some of the top teams. You know, whether it's FaZe, whether it's Optic, Now, Elevate, Envy, whatever team that you want to name, all these rosters in the past have to always worry about playing ISO. You know, many people would bring up, you know, DC, ISO knocking FaZe out in the losers bracket, and ultimately kind of ruining how FaZe's run had been in the past. So with that, this ISO team is definitely not one to mess with. One of my favorite players in the game, I know people might find this kind of curious, but one of my favorite players in the game and who is on this roster is Silly. He's a phenomenal sniper in Search and Destroy. He's always a guy that has around a positive KD, around that 1.0 or 1.09, 1.08 type of KD, but he's very consistent. He's always a guy that's leading most of the time in whatever game type. It doesn't really matter. He just always seems to be very consistent, knows what's going on, and is very calm throughout the entire game. So I'm definitely looking also at Dito. You know, he's one of the main kind of leaders of this team. And, you know, Llama God's a very, very good player as well. I've seen him drop very crazy numbers throughout games. He was regarded as an online warrior at the beginning of the title, and he's kind of showing that through. Havoc is also a very talented guy in his own regard. You know, constant 1v3s and 1v4s for him. So you got to be watching out for them in Search and Destroy. Their upblink game is also very good, but their hard point is insane. So got to be watching out for ISO. Wild card team for me. They can beat almost anyone if you give them the chance. Next team we have to talk about is going to be Vitality. Now, this is my favorite European team currently. I'm sure it is with a lot of other people's as well. But this roster, currently consisting of Tommy, Joe, Mad Cat, and Swanee. First thing, I have been seeing Swanee on just about everything for Black Ops 3, so I'm not sure if he's even playing AW, to be honest with you. I've been seeing him at like different events. I've been seeing him on a lot of YouTube gaming streams, so he looks to be kind of focusing on the media side of things. I'm not sure how often he's been playing AW, but he's got a very, very good team behind him, to say the least. You know, Tommy, who has kind of switched from the AR type of role back to an SMG. You know, Mad Cat and Swanee are the main ARs for this squad, so Tommy's going to have to make that transition for this current game. Joe is a very underlooked player. He seems to be kind of a player who's kind of gone under the radar, but is very, very talented and can really bring this team up, and can kind of be what I would simulate as like a royalty for Epsilon. You know, no one really knew who royalty was until they saw the guy play, and he was insane. So the Joe kind of resembles that type of thing for me. It might be a little bit different in some regards, but this team is definitely not one to mess with. At least, I don't know if I'm crazy or not, but on the Stick show that we had last week, not with Neslo, but with Big Snacks, the Justice owner, everyone was saying, I think except for me, and I think like Mr. X was in the chat, everyone thought that Vitality is going to get like last in this group, or that Vitality is going to get owned by Optic Nation. Like, for real, I think Vitality is a phenomenal looking team on paper, and I think they're going to be a pretty decent team actually on LAN. Like, these guys have played together in the past. Like, we've seen Swanee and Tommy play with each other, and, you know, how long ago on Epsilon. So, I mean, this team is really good. I think this team is very, very talented. I think they can beat Optic Nation, no offense to Owen. But out of this group, I'm going to say it's FaZe 100%. I think FaZe is a fantastic team. There's no reason for me to not doubt them. And I think it's going to come down to ISO and Vitality. To be real, I think ISO, it's hard. It's like, you know, is ISO going to maintain their consistency versus this very charismatic Vitality team? I don't know, but based on what I've seen, based on how consistent ISO is in that first hard point, they just completely demoralize you. But we'll see how Vitality kind of stands up to them. I'm going to say ISO makes it out. I'm a big fan of the ISO boys, so I'm going to say FaZe and ISO make it out. Not in any order for other teams, but yeah, that's my predictions for Group B.